Welcome to another episode of A Brother with Questions. I appreciate y'all, man, for joining me again today. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate everybody who has been sharing their comments with me. I've been enjoying some of these conversations. I appreciate y'all. Again, I've had some people talk to me in person as well. I appreciate them too. But shout out to everybody, man. I appreciate y'all. Let's dive in for today. Today, I just want to do a little reflection today. There's a few things that have been happening, and I'd just like to share some thoughts that I've been having about those things. One, I'm gonna start here. Something a little bit more personal to me, because I live here, live in this beautiful state they call Florida. I personally have no problem with the state, but what has been happening has kind of been, or has been, well, at least some things I'll say, has been a little bit disappointing. Recently, we saw Governor Desantis choose to remove a elected state attorney from the 9th District based on what he calls a lack of judgment on her part in terms of some of the cases that he feels like, I guess, she should have been prosecuting versus, or at least maybe more prosecution versus some of the things that she has chosen to do. And so as governor, he has decided to remove her from office because, from what I can tell, she refuses to fall in line. And so I'm reflecting on this for a couple of reasons. I'm going to tell you, I voted for Governor Desantis. I voted twice for Governor DeSantis. So as a governor going into his first term, honestly, I looked at the two candidates. I felt like he was going to be different, and I wanted to see what he was going to bring. And so personally, I'm actually a fan of his first term. Some of the highlights for me was, one, I love the way he handled COVID. I know that there are a lot of contradictions in terms of, or let's say a lot of people who disagree with the way he handled COVID. But personally, I don't have a problem with the way he handled COVID. I thought that once it was proven that COVID wasn't going to be the hit that it was described as to be, I think overall, I think he did the right thing. As I see it, I don't look at. I mean, obviously, I didn't personally have anybody that I could say I lost to COVID. So for me, I look at it from just a pure numbers perspective. And when I look at the numbers, as much as, I mean, they made it seem like we were going to lose 20% of the population. And clearly we didn't get anywhere close to that. And even when I compared the numbers, and one could argue, I could hear you now, well, he was lying about the numbers. Well, I'd imagine they were all lying about the numbers. So, but when you look at the numbers here were comparable to the next two of the biggest states in the country, New York and California. And we know the policies that they took on were vastly different from his policies, but yet they had similar deaths. I mean, we're talking a few thousand, not even 15 to 20,000. We're talking 1 or 2,000, maybe as much as 5,000 difference. Which, if you're looking at statistics, to me that's not a significant difference. So from that perspective, I didn't have a problem with that. He certainly seemed to be focused on business and making sure businesses had what they needed and were available to be able to thrive and succeed. Because if you're shutting them down, there runs a good chance that they're going to fail and not be here once COVID was over, which we all knew there was going to be a point that COVID was over. And so personally, didn't have a problem with the first term. So when the second term came up, I didn't have a problem with that either, and so we got to that second term, and then, here we go. He started again. The second term, he's chosen to take what I think is a different path from his first term. So in the first term, I think he focused on business and making sure businesses were going to be successful. And, obviously COVID played a part in that, and making sure the businesses in the state of Florida didn't suffer as a result of it. But I love the focus that he had in that first term. Now in the second term, he's taken, he's gone a different path, right? So he's established this thing that he calls woke, or I guess people call woke. And he's established that he's going to be the guy that destroys wokeness. I don't know, however he wants to describe it, right? He's out to show that wokeness is going to be defeated. I guess it's some of the ways that he likes to describe it. And so as a result, he's done some policies that have focused specifically on these ideas. And so there's the gender battles that he's been taking in terms of different bills related to protecting the history, as he might call it. And so one of the first battles that comes to my mind right now is the battle over the AP African American Studies course. And so for a lot of people, the fact that he pushed back against that was a big problem. For me personally, I went and I read the curriculum that at least the initial curriculum that they have for the AP African American Studies class. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't like the first edition of the curriculum. So when I heard that he pushed back on it, I was like, sounds good to me. So I didn't have a problem with that pushback on the initial curriculum. For me, it began to explore topics that I think were irrelevant as it relates to history. Some of the things that stood out for me was this idea of, I can't think of what they call it. I feel like I lost my train of thought on the spot. But there it is. Intersectionality of different topics. I've Googled that word to try and understand that word. I've listened to other people's opinions about what that word means. And I'm here to say, I still don't get it. I still don't think it makes sense. And I think it's irrelevant as it relates to African American history. And one of the part of the reason why I say that is you don't see any intersectionality on anybody else's history. I don't see the intersectionality of U.S. history. I haven't heard that course. I haven't heard that being introduced into that course. I haven't heard the intersectionality of world European history or European history. So if it doesn't exist there, I fail to see how it applies to African American history. That's just my opinion. Some of the other topics they were trying to explore. We were exploring some of our great writers, Langston Hughes and James Baldwin. We were about to, they suggested that we begin to explore their sexual lives and how their sexual lives played a role in their writings. And again, I'm looking at this going, I don't know who Langston Hughes was as far as his personal life. I'm familiar with his writings, but I don't know who he was as his personal life. And so I failed to see how a study of his personal life is somehow going to make his writings that more powerful. So the idea that you are now exploring that, which the suggestion was, apparently there is I don't know, I've Googled this as well. And from what I could see when I was Googling it, there's no proof that Langston Hughes was a gay man, but at least the way the class and the topics that were trying to be suggested as it relates to it, they were certainly going to make the case that he was a gay man and that somehow played a role in the way he wrote. They did the same thing at James Baldwin. They wanted to explore James Baldwin and the fact that he was also supposedly a gay man, and how that played a role in his writings. And again, I've listened to James Baldwin speak, but I've never heard him speak to the fact that his personal life or his personal choice in who he dated, how that played a role in his writings. And so I just challenged the thought that those things were needed. And then that fourth quarter, I ain't even going to the fourth quarter because the fourth quarter was on some whole other stuff. But for me, those are some of the things I had a problem with the class. And so when he said it, I was like, cool, I get it. I get it. I think they need to change it because I think just like we do U.S. history straight, I think African-American history should be straight. Whatever that is, I'm cool with it as long as you're giving it to me straight. Then a lot of people had a problem with their singular focus. It seems for a while they just got bill after bill related to people and the decisions they make as far as being trans or transformers, as I've heard some people say. But and so some certain bills related to preventing children from being able to do that, or I should say preventing parents from allowing their children to transition. Pretty much, there's a movement right now, obviously, to allow them to transition whenever they want. And then in that movement, there's some arguments being made that there are certain drugs or surgeries that can take place that people can take advantage of, I should say. And so DeSantis was making bills to essentially curb the opportunities for people to do so. And I know a lot of people or I should say upset about that. Personally, I didn't have any feelings about that. I don't agree with, I agree with the sentiment that he was trying to say. I didn't think it needed to be legislated. I think that was just, I think that was him overreacting to conversations online. At that point, I felt like he was just responding to what seemed to be a online conversation, but was not the main conversation of people on the front lines, if you will, right? I don't think anybody was going, yeah, I think you need to do something about that. No, I think people were like, I don't agree with it, but I don't necessarily know that people were trying to legislate it away. And so for me, he took a turn and I was like, all right, like, whatever, but you kind of wasting time right now. Then of course there was the abortion issue came up, right? The Supreme Court decided that abortion was no longer an issue that needed to be held up from a federal perspective. They thought it should be a states' rights issue. And so they said, states, do what you want, states, make your own decisions. And so there were several bills that have taken place. Again, for me personally, I have not been offended by these bills. A lot of them look at anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, and then they want to stop the opportunity to have an abortion at that point. For me personally, I don't know. I know let's say this. For me personally, I don't see the problem with that. Now, I do have a lot of women in my life that have explained to me that that is a problem. And so I will take them at their word. But I would say for me, it has not been a problem. And I'll just leave it right there. It has not been a problem. I don't see the problem for me, but I understand how women feel. I've talked to enough women that have tried to explain to me that this is a huge problem. And I'll take them at their word that it was a problem for them. Again, didn't bother me personally. So, and again, I'm just going through his history as a person who has voted for DeSantis. And so it kind of takes me to my next issue with DeSantis is, then we got the announcement for presidency, which was cool because I knew it was coming. I mean, the writing was on the wall, right? It was clear going into his reelection term. He won by a very large amount in the state of Florida. That people were looking forward to his presidential term. And then he started it and it pretty much, it like fizzled out. He was supposed to be the candidate that was going to battle Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump. And for the most part, he's become the candidate that's looking, kind of looking up at his big brother like, hey, bro, help me out, bro. But it hasn't worked out for him. In that perspective. And so here we are, and we get to this point where one of the other kind of candidates that a lot of people is just kind of blowing people away and kind of rising up in the ranks, and recently has at least tied Governor Desantis and the stats that he's pulling right now. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. And so he's kind of leading that charge of gaining momentum and certainly gaining a lot more momentum than Governor DeSantis. And so here we are where over the last week here, he has decided he was going to remove the state attorney and take her out of office for, again, the reasons why he laid out. And so for me, as someone who voted for him, for me, this has been the most disappointing thing. And I look at it like, dude, I haven't seen, again, according to all the articles I read, I haven't seen anything where she's done something wrong. I certainly see how she's made decisions that would go against what he's pushing right now. And to me, that's very obvious that she's pushing back against his policies that he's putting in place. She's clearly pushing back against some of the ideas that he would prefer that she do. But I haven't seen anything that suggests she's done something illegal. And so from that perspective, until my mind gets broadened to what she's done illegal, to me, I look at Governor Desantis and I go, this is a punk move. Because you're clearly doing this, in my opinion. You're doing this to put your name back in the news because your name hasn't been in the news. They've been talking more about Donald Trump and the policies, or I should say the indictments that he has going on right now, which is, side note, I think they're backfiring on everybody that's trying to indict him because his popularity seems to only be increasing as a result. And so it's making it more challenging for anybody that's going against him in this Republican nomination to even get a foothold because people are so upset about what they're doing to former President Donald Trump. So he's losing on that front, Governor DeSantis. And then you got this other guy, Vivek Ramaswamy. He is everywhere. He's talking to anybody that wants to talk. He is going to places that typically a Republican candidate won't go. I seen a video where he went to a barbershop in Chicago. I don't know what side he was on, but he was at a black barbershop. I guess I need to preface that. He was at a black barbershop. We're talking to black people, which again, typical Republicans don't go talk to black people. And I know there's a host of reasons why they don't, but he was there. I saw him talking to people on YouTube, YouTubers, which I haven't seen. He's talking to the YouTubers and responding to some of the things that they're saying good or bad about him. He is pretty much doing every person giving an interview to everyone who's willing to put a camera in his face. And so as a result, people are hearing what he has to say and they are responding to it. And as a result, he's rising in the polls and he certainly has a lot of momentum. And so here comes Governor DeSantis ready to make a big splash. And his splash is, bow, you're fired. And I'm like, dude, this ain't the reason why you're not gaining traction. The reason why you're not gaining traction because you don't want to talk to nobody. I've been watching to see who you're going to show up on in terms of an interview, and you've only been to the staples. You talked to the Fox News people and things like that, but you ain't gone to nowhere where they're going to really push back against what you had to say. On top of that, you know what your biggest problem is? You look like a robot, bruh. You look like a robot. You talk like a robot. You don't seem to have any charisma whatsoever, and so you're looking to gain traction by doing things that cause a splash. And in my opinion, this is a splash that's going to backfire on you. It doesn't make you look strong. I don't think every state attorney has to bow down to what you're doing. And I'm pretty sure while this particular state attorney may certainly carry a lot of sway in the state, I guarantee you, I'm sure she's not the only one that's not bowing down. There's probably others that we don't know about that don't have the cachet that are also not bowing down and prosecuting people in the way that you see fit. So why pick a fight here? It just seems like a move to get your name back in the news so that people will start listening to what you have to say, so that people will be forced to talk to you about why you made this decision, and you can begin to defend it. And again, cameras are back in your face. To me, if you want cameras in your face, go talk to the people. Go talk to the place. Go talk to people where people are. I am sure everybody wants to talk to you, so go talk to them. You know, you don't have to do something shady in the back rooms of government. Well, it may be legal, but it's still shady for you to take an elected official and go, elected official, you don't want to do what I say, so I'm going to fire you today. That's a punk move, in my opinion. I think you got to do better. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know if she's going to be able to get her job back. I think from everything I've heard so far, when the election season comes around in 2024, she plans to run again, and so we'll see if the people put her back into office again. But as far as Governor Ron DeSantis, man, I think you got to do better. As a voter who gladly, no problem, put you back into office. I think you got to do better to the people. I don't think it's everybody's responsibility to bow down. You're not a dictator. This is not your state to move exactly how you want to move. And so the fact that this particular state attorney doesn't agree with your policies and doesn't agree with the way that you would want to prosecute cases and is doing it a little bit different, I don't think that's a reason to fire her. And like I said, I think it's a punk move. I think you got to do better in terms of your presidential run. I think you ought to start talking to everybody. Truth be told, at the pace we're going, provided Donald Trump only has all these indictments, he's more than likely going to be the nominee anyway. So if you want to really create any traction, you got to go talk to some people and let them understand why they should be voting for you and not former President Donald Trump. Or the guy who is gaining really momentum right now, Vivek Ramaswamy. And stop pulling, in my opinion, these, I don't know what you want to call it, these tricks to the game to try and draw attention to yourself. To me, it shows it shows a weakness in you because your mouth can't get you to where you want to go. And truth be told, we're talking about the presidency now. The only way you're going to ever truly get the momentum you need to become president is people got to hear what you got to say. And you got to go to the places where they're going to challenge what you got to say. There are a lot of people who play the game that you're playing. And they only go talk to the people who are going to be nice to them. But in order to do that, you have to already be winning. If you're not already winning, you got to go to the trenches. You got to go to all them places where they're going to challenge some of the moves you make and push back. And you got to be able to defend it. Not only that, you got to have some charisma about it. You know, regardless of what you want to say about former President Donald Trump, what you're not going to say is he ain't got charisma. Even the new guy that's driving the momentum right now, Vivek Ramaswamy, the man's got charisma. So Governor DeSantis, if you're going to stay in this race, if you're going to gain any momentum, you're going to stop playing games. You're going to develop a personality. And you're going to have to talk to some people. Stop with the tricks. What does the commercial tell you? Tricks are for kids, bud. And last time I checked, you're not no kid. I'm done. This is your guy, B period, man. Like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all, man.